Hey, Roger.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Yeah, similar. So trying to catch up after a bit of time off.
Nice. Hey, Yusuf.
Yusuf.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you all?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing okay. Wife and I went stargazing over the weekend, and that was really fun.
Nice.
Don't have any opportunities to do that.
We went to last week. We went to Vegas to visit the Sphere. It's like probably like decade too early to build it. It's like so out of this world. Like aliens landed in Vegas. It's like insane.
Wait, there's aliens in Vegas?
I'm talking. Yeah, yeah. I'm talking about the Sphere.
I've seen videos of it. It's cool to hear that it's actually like neat to see in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's outside, it's like just fantastic, and like when you go inside, it's just like blows your mind. Like I can't imagine. Like we've seen this like postcard from Earth movie by Darren Aronofsky there, and the screen, all the effects, the sounds, like is just like unbelievable.
Wow.
Cool.
A similar outrageous experience, but on a very different level. Massive zoo in the middle of France called Zoo Bouval. Friends big into falconry and stuff. And we're like, yeah, we'll go see the falcons. And we're thinking like, we started off like one just flies this way and another one flies this way, and then here's some owls and here's some vultures. And before you know it, by the end, it's this big like outdoor amphitheater thing. It felt like you were in Jurassic Park because there's just like flocks of birds everywhere, along with these like massive birds in between. Just like slowly built up over about half an hour by the end. Like, fantastic.
All right. Looks like we've got everyone here. Who's going to run the show today?
I'd prefer not to. I know I'm just back in after missing a few, but I'm still trying to get up to speed.
I can try doing that this time.
We have the agenda merged in on GitHub. The approach I took last week is I didn't take notes during, and whoever takes notes this time, I think I just watched the playback on 1.5 speed and took notes from there. It was easy to focus on the meeting.
All right. Oh yeah, thank you. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so topics I see, I don't know if we share these, but yeah, I'll do that. 1.11.
So 1.11's moving on. We did just merge a large portion of the ephemeral work into main. So we are working on crossing T's and dotting I's over the next few weeks. And if everything goes well, we should be ready to have some nightlies, maybe even an alpha at some point. We want to get eyes on that as soon as possible because it is a very large, complex feature that has lots of interesting nooks and crannies within the functionality and different interactions. The rest of the issues are either on their way to being wrapped up or are pretty much there. The only one that's a little bit of an exception is the enabled flag. Dio's got the RFC. We're doing the final review of the RFC now. But he's also been in parallel prototyping the implementation. So I think the path from accepted to released is actually quite small. The more difficult work on that one was figuring out the expected functionality versus actually implementing it, as far as I know. But overall, we're moving. Should within month and a half be on the process to getting the release out. Again, this is barring any unforeseen bumps in the road. I try not to set expectations of X will be released by this date, but just sharing the state of what we understand is currently moving and how that's going.
All right.
Whilst we are doing updates, I wanted to provide an update of something that I forgot to put in the agenda. Yesterday, we successfully moved our Slack server across to the CNCF workspace finally. So that's it involved a lot of manual work. We had to copy and paste emails of users, 200 people at a time, into a text box that takes 5 minutes to send invites, but we got it working.
Nice. And there are people there active and stuff, yeah?
Yeah, I'm seeing some activity. A lot of these people are invites, but in the OpenTofu channel in the CNCF Slack, I think we're at over 2,500 users. Let me check. 2,425. So, yeah, things are looking good.
And is there any plans to like sunset shut down the old OpenTofu community Slack workspace?
I think we're gonna just point people over to the new one, and if we just find that it dies and we don't have a message for a couple of weeks, then we shut it down. But I think there's no real need to do that in the next month or so.
The messages are lost after 90 days anyway, so maybe that's our cutoff is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to update like any? Do we have any website documents like in GitHub anywhere? Do we need to update links?
Yep. So all of our links pointed to opentofu.org/Slack, which now takes you to a page asking you to join the CNCF Slack and join the OpenTofu channel in there. I've done all this already.
Damn it! I don't have anything else to. Oh, can you? Good job. Well done.
It took some time.
I bet.
Well, one thing procedure-wise we forgot to do is look at the action items from last time. Just thinking of the things that were in progress. Sorry to bump you just a little bit. Ariel, can you click on the meeting notes from last time? I should be. Yeah, 722 notes. All right. Previous action items. Igor, you were going to update the membership list?
It's done.
Awesome.
And S3 backend docs is on my to-do list. It is a low priority compared to the Slack migration that's taken some time, but it's on my to-do list. I've not forgotten about it. Are there any other action items towards the bottom? Or anything? No? I have a scheduled conversation with the CNCF coming up about the next stage, moving to incubating. I have lots of conversations with the LF coming up. So, cool.
All right. So, wait, not this one. Yeah. All right.
So, Christian, I think you put this on the agenda, the TerraGrunt integration.
Yeah, we had kind of discussed this last time. I think, having the hindsight, I think we want to set some pretty clear scope guardrails on this. I think if it's just an issue, then if it's like an issue that can be discussed offline, it should be discussed offline. But if there's like a large integration point, this is a place to discuss this potentially. I guess
For folks that weren't around when I brought this up initially, I meet with the TerraGrunt devs like right before this call. So I have a standing item on that call to just say, like, is there anything regarding the integration with OpenTofu that might make OpenTofu better to improve the lives with TerraGrunt users on OpenTofu? And so that's why, like, I'm not going to have time to put anything on the agenda, given that I discussed it with them like the minute before this call starts. The things we discussed today are actually the follow-up items on here regarding the new OpenTofu providers. At the bottom, James's RFC. I went over it, or at least like half to 3/4 of it, and discussed it with the devs. And they brought up some questions regarding whether OpenTofu is considering exposing some capability of acting as a server for third-party integrations. So using this new RPC mechanism to expose OpenTofu as an RPC server for tools like TerraGrunt or anything else.
Okay, so can you open an issue about this? Because I think this is one I want to discuss on an issue, and I'm gonna keep giving this as a response mainly because I don't think it needs the whole of the TSC.
Okay.
But I think it's an issue that we've been discussing internally, which is how we can make. And I'm going to touch on this a little bit about the future of OpenTofu. How we can make OpenTofu what I would call a little bit more modern, so that it's not a polling loop of a CLI application that we're all running, where we're running plan and apply constantly. Maybe we can put something on a server somewhere, do some sort of RPC or some other calls into it. Maybe it reacts to different kind of situations. Maybe it watches CloudWatch logs and does some planning and applying automatically. There's lots of different directions we can go in this. So I think if you could have an issue discussing how TerraGrunt would like to invoke OpenTofu and maybe some of the problems you're trying to solve, maybe something like, I don't know, Azure Federated Auth. So you want to run OpenTofu remotely, like inside your Azure account. These kind of things would be very helpful to have on the issue, so we can discuss them.
Okay, we'll do. That's what we discussed today. That's the content of the standing topic, and we can move on.
Okay. So the future of OpenTofu and a drop-in replacement. And I wanted to preface all of this. Actually, this would be helpful if I could maybe talk to the TerraGrunt devs, because I'm interested in setting up a working group to discuss what this would be around providers, particularly, and that depends on this issue with the TSC. And if people have read the issue, I'd love to just have 10 minutes of their time where I could talk to them, maybe. But we can organize that outside of the call. So for a large amount of background on this one, I've been having some discussions with the team as a maintainer, talking with Christian, Martin, and some of the others, and I have a real big concern that I feel the community wants us just to carry on being a one-for-one with Terraform, but open source. And I don't think that's the right direction for OpenTofu. I believe that we should be aiming to implement some new features in each release, which we've been very successful at doing so far. But what I worry about is that if HashiCorp are doing 3 or 4 new features right now, are we just going to be lagging behind 3 months all the time? And we're often having conversations about, well, that's not in the provider, we can't do this. Or we'd have to go and implement something completely new, so that's tech debt. As Yusuf mentioned, I pitched an RFC, which was huge. I think it was like 8,000 words, and it's only 3/4 done. Christian called me out for how big it was. It's really 7 RFCs and 1 trench coat pretending to be 1. But the idea in general is that I believe that OpenTofu, to go forward and add some capabilities, we should carry on supporting Terraform providers perfectly fine, but I think we need an OpenTofu provider that allows end users to extend functionality a lot easier. The first point on the issue I'm going to talk about this is I think our goal has always been internally that we are serving the community and doing what the community wants. And that's worked really well for us. And the community is guiding our roadmap. We're working with the community to understand issues that they want. We look at the top voted issues, etc. But when we make statements like on our website that we are a drop-in replacement for Terraform without clarifying what version or how, we are saying that we're always a one-to-one like match of feature set, and people are always looking to compare us. And what I would like to ask the TSC is to think about, and maybe we could vote about it today, I don't know, is maybe making a statement to say that we are a drop-in replacement for Terraform 1. I don't know what their current version is. Whatever version has ephemeral values, and we'll have ephemeral values. And we say we're a drop-in replacement for that, and then we will aim to implement what the community wants, but we'll also look at adding OpenTofu specific features. I've talked a lot. I'm curious, what do other people think? Igor, you're first.
Okay, I won by a like very small margin, and it's cool that like Google Meet just added like the positions now. That's new. Lots of things to say here. I'll try to be brief. So like just adding like OpenTofu specific things is great. It's like where we add in differentiator, and like I just want to have a reminder that the reason why we're doing this is to steer community away from Terraform to use OpenTofu, to let them to migrate. And so far, while migration is easy, like we see people slowly moving towards OpenTofu. But just to be realistic here, like OpenTofu market share still abysmally small from what I can see. Like I don't have any hard evidence on my hands, but just judging by like our customers and even potential prospects, there are still people have a lot of like hesitancy to move to OpenTofu for a variety of reasons. Some of them are absolute like bullshit reasons, and some of them like pretty valid reasons. My concern is doing anything that will make this idea that I can migrate from OpenTofu to Terraform harder can bite us down the road. Because now, like we are, instead of like slowly getting market share and like eat a Terraform pie while we're dropping the placement, and continue to convince people, like it's easy to like much easier to convince people with like bullshit reasons, like some beliefs with some proof and stuff, versus if there are technical reasons why migration is hard and impossible. So like doing anything that will make this migration harder or make it like decision to make like to migrate harder, I would say it's like I'm on the fence on it. But adding features that actually help us to convince people, hey, to migrate to OpenTofu and you'll get X, and it's still easy migration. It's still like pretty much just, hey, like right now we claim and just switch like your command from Terraform to Tofu and it will just work in 98% of the cases. And it did a huge favor. Like we just migrated like Fortune 50 huge customer from Terraform to OpenTofu, and there was some political bullshit there, but at the end we have like hundreds of thousands of runs being executed on OpenTofu, and they're super happy with this decision. And the main reason was that it was not really a technical decision. We had like technical, like, yeah, it just works. We tested it. It's just like easy migration. And then it was just like some political drama and like, it was like easy things to solve. So this is my take on like drop-in replacement, and I agree that we probably, like right now, it's not really a drop-in replacement, especially if you're using like latest features. We need to clarify where it's drop-in and where it's not, like just to be specific. But I would still argue that let's keep this gap as little as possible until we actually stand like get like decent market share and where we can actually stand by ourselves. And I have another whole bunch of reservation about OpenTofu providers, but like I'm limiting this talk only to like drop-in replacement part.
Yep. I'll do the same. So just want to kind of talk about the 98% are just speaking from as with my maintainer hat on when I've spoken publicly about this in the past. Our approach has been that we will be effectively since 1.5, we've primarily just added features that users have wanted us to be compatible with. It hasn't been. It's been focused on the features that people actually want and actually use. Can ITF kind of shows that a little bit, but yeah, making our website more clear on that I think is very important. Even linking to CanI.tf and helping maintain it could be something worth doing, but I know that we've had some heated conversations about that in the past. I do also want to say that it is hard to do both. It takes a significant amount of time to keep pace with what Terraform's doing at whatever speed we want, but also to innovate and to drive the project forward in a way that will attract people to say, you're not just running a fork of Terraform, you're running something that can do what you need out of Terraform, but better, faster, easier, however we want to pitch the new features. And keeping the core team, the maintainers, keeping that enthusiasm, keeping that excitement going. Not to mention the community. Yusuf?
I believe Roger Baby. Go ahead, Roger.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Up in milliseconds and finger school. Echo what both have already said. Push strongly echoing what Igor said. My conversations are largely on, surprisingly, even people who understand the ecosystem still don't really know OpenTofu, and there's always a large conversation around like what that migration process looks like. They've looked at the website already, typically, and still concerns. The next biggest one is around providers, and it's quite an easy conversation at the minute to be able to kind of say the providers are the same, and you know there's a certain amount of security then that new adopters are kind of getting out of that. That said, I always caveat any conversations I have with kind of potential new users with these are two separate projects. We aren't a mirror project. We can't be a mirror project legally. At some point, there'll be a breaking change that we can't go back on. Terraform already with the likes of Stacks and the integration more with their commercial offering. We don't have an easy answer for this open source project. I know we've got a ton of innovation ideas that could take us in a better direction for everybody involved. But I echo Igor's concerns that we are still trying to convince people that this is good and is the natural kind of home to kind of move on with. The other thing is that I think just there's still quite a lot of uncertainty with the IBM acquisition, and so at the minute the timing might not be amazing. Though I do see at some point in the future we could won't be able to keep up, but at some point there'll be a break and change in one of the two. Maybe not break and change as much as an incompatibility that we've implemented something in a particular way that then means that some new functionality on the Terraform side just isn't going to be possible for us. So I do see it as an inevitability. But I guess the question here is more around what should we be prioritizing, and maybe we start to take that as a case by case as opposed to an overall new direction or like kind of ideological kind of approach to this and kind of continuing that feature by feature in terms of what are people actually really looking for. What this RFC, I tried to look at it earlier, but GitHub was down and wouldn't let me look at it. So I'll do more kind of research on that. But if we're introducing that as an idea, and then we've got like some sort of superset of the provider API, then that feels like that feels like a sensible kind of place to go. And I've probably said more than enough, so we'll pass off to you, Seth.
So I don't think there's a lot that's new in what I have to say. I'll just share that public. If you don't know, when you join the Terra Discord server, you can highlight whether or not you're using OpenTofu or Terraform, and that's publicly visible, the roles that users have. Based on those statistics, and Terra Discord is going to be heavily biased towards OpenTofu. 51% of users are OpenTofu in comparison to Terraform. So vast majority of people, even in a biased location like the Terra Discord server, are using Terraform instead of OpenTofu. In surveys that we've done, it's still like, I think just off the top of my head, maybe like 33% of the population is using OpenTofu compared to Terraform. I think for one thing to keep in mind is that Terraform's been around for like 10 plus years now, and OpenTofu is not. And people hate changing IAC. So it's going to take a very long time, even if people think that OpenTofu is the better option for them, to make this migration. And the longer that window of drop-in parity stays open, the more, especially very large organizations, are in that window where they can accept this migration, because they're very risk averse and they want the time to see it used in production systems by other very large companies before they're willing to make this transition. Final point I'll make is that for the vast majority of Terraform and OpenTofu users, 100% drop-in replacement means you can plan apply without using something other than a .tf file. Like, it's what almost every user of OpenTofu Terraform uses, the vast minority of features in these tools. And so, claiming drop-in replacement is very true for those users. So I don't think you need to go out of your way to be like, assuming you're not using this thing and that thing and whatever, like, here's the fine details on the front page that tells you whether or not it's drop-in. That's only relevant for like, a vanishingly small portion of the user base. So maybe there could be like an FAQ of like, are we 100% drop-in? And then you could go like, well, it can get a little bit complicated depending on how advanced your usage is, and go into a separate page that breaks all that down. But I think headline, we are a drop-in replacement, should stay that until at least parity in user base, or maybe OpenTofu starts winning. And that's it. That's my spiel.
Yeah, I don't think I have a lot to add. I do think we're not in a position to maybe change our general claim here too much. I do agree that I don't know if we do have the numbers or the knowledge as to how many people are actually using the newer versions of Terraform, and these are the ones with the potential to maybe go to OpenTofu here, because I don't know, and then we're doing ephemeral resources. We probably know of people who want that, but it's also hard to know if those are mainly individual or big companies, I think. So maybe it's not going to be so bad if this isn't like not the main statement in the website, but we do put that in some places. But I think that putting a number as to this is up to a specific version, then it's like it's going to make some people very wary of using tofu in general, I think, even if they're not there. So I really want to be in that position. I just don't believe we are there yet. That's my issue.
So I will be quite brutally honest here. Everything that you guys have just discussed mostly is a marketing issue and not a technical issue.
Mhm.
Right? But it's a marketing issue that has impact on the technical part of the product. Right? I understand the hesitation, but right now, if we don't make such a statement, or if we don't clarify our drop-in replacement comment, the maintainers will have to go and try and fulfill that comment. This means implementing things such as deferred actions or pluggable state storage, or Terraform's coming up with a new system called actions that, I don't know, whatever they're hiring a bunch of engineers to work on Terraform and Ansible together for. And I don't think we should have intentions to go and maintain that feature set. I think what Yusuf said was very apt, which the way I summarized it is that most users of Terraform who want to switch across are fine if they are using resources and data sources, which is 99.999% of the usage. And I'm happy to go and make a statement that if you're just using resources and data sources and soon ephemeral, then we are happy to move you across. But I think if we keep trying to say that we're a drop-in replacement when we are not, you're hampering the development team, and we don't have the resources to keep up with HashiCorp. Igor?
Yeah, I'll just go back to my original statement. I don't think that, like, I, for example, don't expect us to go and match every single Terraform feature. Some of them are very, very boutique and for a small amount of users. And again, just clarify where we are drop-in replacement. And I agree with you. Like for 99% of the users, it is drop-in replacement. We just need to clarify like whatever 99% means, and that's it.
Okay.
Yusuf?
Yeah, I would just say, like, it's not just a marketing difference, right? Like, marketing is kind of the game right now when you're behind and you're a lot newer than your competition. So I think it's extremely important that OpenTofu market well and be perceived very well by the community. I'm just now starting to see like community interaction on places like Reddit, where OpenTofu is just being like naturally brought up as the smarter alternative to starting on Terraform if you're just getting into IAC, because it's perceived to be less risky. You're not getting into a lock-in situation with HashiCorp, et cetera. But that's going to take time. That's going to take time to like pervade like the culture of DevOps. And I do think that's immensely important. Whether or not the development team then decides that they must have parity on every new feature that Terraform has, I think is a different conversation than what should be like the frontline messaging for the product. And the messaging, I believe, should be, we are a drop-in replacement. That's my thing, Christian.
Okay. I think what I'm looking for, putting my maintainer hat on, is I suspect from James as well, is we're looking for the flexibility within the development team to prioritize things that will make OpenTofu a better project and figure out how to be eventually compatible. This kind of gets back to our current unofficial philosophy of, as users are finding different features in Terraform useful, we try to add them to OpenTofu in the best way that we can. But finding the balance between making a claim that doesn't scare users away, potential users away, or existing ones, and allowing the development to continue in our own path. That's it. If we can figure out how to straddle that balance, I think that will allow us to move forward much better.
Yeah, and what I'm actually pitching, and I really think we're hampering, like we're really harming ourselves by saying we're a drop-in replacement forever, and that should be our goal. I really think that we have to be realistic and recognize that the projects are going to diverge at some point. And that means HashiCorp is going to add features that OpenTofu doesn't want, and OpenTofu is going to add features that HashiCorp doesn't want to implement. And I think we are at that pivotal point now, right? I think the top issues that are voted on the OpenTofu board are around stacks, and that is about it. But HashiCorp is going to be implementing its own sets of things that work very well for HCP Terraform. And I don't think they serve the OpenTofu community. And I would rather switch our messaging to stop talking about how we're a drop-in replacement and instead talk about how we're serving the community. I mentioned that we have a migration guide, migration tool, whatever, from Terraform 1.10 to OpenTofu 1.10. And we can then, as an engineering team, actually move on and get things done without having to constantly say, oh, but HashiCorp haven't added this to the provider, or, oh, HashiCorp have added this feature, we've now got to add this in the next release to maintain this drop-in replacement and compatibility promise. Roger, you mentioned in the chat here about eventually compatible. I don't know fully your intent behind it, but I really worry that if we say that we're going to be eventually compatible, we are going to be dedicating over 50% of our engineering time to implementing HashiCorp features that may not be good for OpenTofu.
Quick question, and like maybe I'm a little here, but like anybody from the community actually actively pointing us into like when is this feature will be added, and like do this drop-in replacement kind of claim, like how, like can you just provide an example of how exactly it's hurting us today, and like but not like it from the inside but from the outside?
To be fully honest, the only people who really want to keep the term drop-in replacement are the people who are in this meeting.
Sorry, I dropped my message. I hit the wrong button.
Oh.
And down as opposed to mute.
So sorry, can I finish, Roger?
Sorry.
Just finish. So like why it's a problem to continue to, like, if we say like we are dropping the placement, we clarify that it's like only for 99% of the users who are not using like this X feature of Terraform. That's it. Like, what's the problem of having this? Like somebody claiming that that's not true, or like somebody pointed us that like that's bullshit, or like how it's hurting us?
I believe we should be impartial here, and we should talk about what's best for OpenTofu. And I personally think that that is highlighting features that we have, and not that we're a drop-in replacement for Terraform. I think the only way of us saying we're a drop-in replacement for Terraform is an advantage to all of the individual companies who are arguing that you should move to OpenTofu all the time. But I don't see this argument in the community, and I don't have much evidence proving that it being a drop-in replacement is much of an advantage. I don't think people care about if we have ephemeral values or not. No one seems to care about this.
Okay. Errol or Roger? Like,
yeah, Roger.
Sorry, just listening to you back, James, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think we're kind of talking across possibly slightly different things, but with similar language, and maybe it's around trying to find the language. What I'm hearing from you, James, is that the extremity of drop-in replacement is the bit that's hurting us, but maybe if we move to something more like Terraform compliant, or not Terraform compliant, but like Terraform compatible, or something that's a little less strong in its wording, then it maybe does allow us to drop down to the, like, well, what are the actual features that people really want? What are the things that make sense for Terraform or for Tofu? And allow us maybe the opportunity then to, for the likes of the RSC is being proposed, the conversation that was started earlier in this call, you're bringing those features in and offering those up to the community is like, here's some new stuff. Like, you don't just have to like be copying what's going on. And maybe that and I get then that maybe that opens up the opportunity to focus on that. We all know that the projects will diverge. That's the assumption. They're two separate living beings. But it's maybe just the strength of the language that is being concerned about. And I guess, yes, you're right. A bunch of people on this call sit on customer calls, and often it's well, why on earth would I want to move to tofu? What's the actual advantage here? So maybe it is, we need to start thinking about that more. But the drop-in replacement has been useful to this point to try and get some adoption. Maybe we're at that point where we're like, well, actually, it's really not drop-in replacement, but it's compatible. What are the features that you actually want to make use of?
So I want to put the messaging aside 1 sec, because that's totally a marketing thing, and I agree with you, James. And I'm not a person who understands much about that. I care more about what you mentioned and that's how much we work on what kind of features. And I did want to ask if you feel like we have done features that we should not have. Like, for example, you said ephemeral, and if we shouldn't have, my question is, did people from the community ask for that, or did we just decide we do that just for compatibility because that's the main big feature of Terraform in that version? Because I think, again, for now, I don't want to talk about messaging. I want to talk about what we decide we do. And I do think that there might still be times where the technical steering committee will decide that some parity is worth it. I do think that we need to be not as strict about it. I don't care about messaging. Let's talk about that later. That's, I don't know, I'll take it up with someone else from M0. But personally, if we are doing ephemeral resources right now, and it's mostly to say we have that, and not like specific companies here, someone really wanted that or whatever, we don't know that the community actually wants that, then yeah, that is a wrong reason to do that. I think
ephemeral was our top voted issue, so we know the community wants this. But I think we should do it for the fact that the community voted for it, and not because HashiCorp did it.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
sorry.
Do you think the messaging makes the community vote for that? That's your.
Let's get around all the people, and then we'll get back to what I think about the messaging.
I'm just going to quickly say, in response to URL, the better example is Tofu Test. It's not something that many people use. It's a huge compatibility surface that just causes lots of headaches for us. And we know
we totally should have dropped that.
Yeah, it should have been something that we pushed back on and didn't implement. So that is just giving you the concrete example of with hindsight.
Yeah, but for me, test is a good example of something that today I would say no, but back then we didn't have. But we wouldn't say no. That's okay. My opinion, though.
Yusuf's had this handled for a while, so that's Yusuf.
Well, so one question for you, James, is how important do you think adoption is right now for OpenTofu? Like, how much value do we get out of developing for the sake of increasing adoption of OpenTofu?
Okay. I think that's a little bit of a loaded question, because I think adoption can come from multiple different places. And if I'm reading between the lines a little bit and jumping ahead, I think adoption is very important. And I believe that comes from our messaging and our development style. And I'm sure that some people on Hacker News will grab pitchforks and say, OpenTofu is diverging and it's no longer a drop-in replacement for a day. I think I have this ideal vision in my head that OpenTofu has people who decide to pick up its adoption based on features and not based on the fact that we're a drop-in replacement for Terraform.
I will say that is not how I understand OpenTofu adoption today. I don't think the majority of people, or at least from what I've seen, when people look at OpenTofu versus Terraform adoption today and they're new to IAC, they will either go, this is a lower risk option because it's open source and I don't plan on buying anything from HashiCorp right now, or a book was written recently that prioritized OpenTofu, so I'm just going to go with what was there by default, or I randomly stumbled on OpenTofu first.
Okay, but we're already ticking all of those boxes.
But the new features, like, while great, like if you're trying to increase adoption, so I'll just leave that point there. Which of the two is all I'm asking? Do you think will increase adoption for OpenTofu? Is it new features that differentiate it from Terraform, or is it maintaining the compatibility? And if you think it's new features, that's fair. And the other point I want to bring up is OpenTofu is the open source option, and as such, the community can contribute features that increase parity. It doesn't necessarily have to be the OpenTofu core team that's addressing these. So, as an example of that, TerraGrunt had the need to establish OpenTelemetry integration with OpenTofu, and some guy from the community just contributed that feature in a pull request. That's pretty convenient.
Wait, wasn't that me?
That was you.
So
you as a member of the community. You contribute that PR, and you've increased integration with the tool.
I'm going to interrupt Christian because I'd like to respond to this, and I think Christian's going to say the same thing I'm going to say. We'll see if he puts his hand down. I'm not saying we should actively avoid features that HashiCorp Terraform are doing and actively avoid parity. But what I think we should do is not make it our primary goal. I think our primary goal should be serving the community. If HashiCorp Terraform releases a fantastic feature that all of the community want, and they go and upvote for it and ask for it on OpenTofu, then we will consider it and go and add it, right? But I don't think we should drive ourselves on the engineering team by saying that we're maintaining compatibility.
I fully agree with that.
I don't think that I'm not saying let's drop all compatibility. What I'm saying is we should be community focused. We already have this level of compatibility that we have now with whatever version of Terraform released in ephemeral values. I don't know what it is. Our next version of OpenTofu will be compatible with that. I think it's 1.11 on both of them, which works out nicely, but I'm not sure.
Partially.
And I think that's good enough to talk about how we are Terraform compatible and that messaging. In an ideal world, I would love to make an active statement from the TSC saying we're not going to aim to maintain one-to-one compatibility or drop-in replacement. We are going to blaze our own path and not look at HashiCorp and just look at what community issues get raised. But I have to be aware that we're not going to do that, right? So we need to be in this middle ground of like, what's our messaging? Came back to this. I know, Arrow, you don't want to talk about it, sorry, but I think it's important. But also being clear with the engineering team that we're community driven and looking at serving the community and the features rather than keeping up with HashiCorp. Sorry, Christian, you had your hand up.
So just to respond to what you asked Yusuf about why can't the community do some of these, they can, but we've had issues with that in the past. Given some issues in the past, we've decided, at least for now, err on the side of caution, and any issues that come in that are feature parity related, we tend to, unless it's remarkably trivial, we stick a core team only label on there because there's a certain amount of trust we have within the maintainers who are paid to work on this project that they will not be doing something that they shouldn't be doing, looking at something they shouldn't be doing when working on these features where there is such source readily available for inspiration, let's call it. So it's easier for us to assign more greenfield issues to the community or ones that are lower risk, but it is, for ephemeral in particular, having someone who is tied to an organization that is paying him to work on this and has very clear and explicit guidelines on what is allowed, what is not allowed. Not just the contribution guide, but all of the conversation, all of the training. Makes it harder than I wish it was. So, but it's the situation we find ourselves in.
Eagle?
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like other than this tofu test feature that nobody asked for and like nobody cares, and we still add it just for the sake of drop-in replacement. Like, is there any other cases where like we're working on something that is like not serving community, but we only doing this because we have drop-in replacement claim on our website?
Okay, so there's lots of different ways to approach this. We have approached features in different ways before from HashiCorp. So already, like provider-defined functions for us, we can do this from configured providers, and HashiCorp does not. There are some upcoming features in HashiCorp Terraform that we will probably not have the manpower to go and implement, such as deferred actions right now. And there are some features that are coming up in HashiCorp Terraform we're seeing called PSS, which is pluggable state storage, which is an alternative to our backends as plugins, if the name is anything to guess by, where I believe we can do it differently and better, and we have RFC open around granular state storage and ways to approach things in a different direction. And then HashiCorp is also looking at adding something according to their job post about actions, which are about day 2 operations, which I don't believe would serve OpenTofu at all. And so there's a lot, like, what feature set the users are going to get in OpenTofu and Terraform are going to diverge, whether or not we do it or HashiCorp does it.
So would this, like, in this case, like going back to the point that I think Yusuf said, like, if we'll change it to like, if you're using like standard plan apply, whatever it is, like it's easy to be like let's say configuration versions that with certain list of resources, so will be continuously make sure that it's like 100% compatible, but the rest is like we don't make any promises. Would this solve the problem? That yeah, feels like a no-brainer to me in this case.
And sorry, I'm interrupting Roger. Go ahead.
Fire ahead. It's good.
So I think the community already has that expectation, right? Because development isn't instant. So there's some lag in what Terraform will introduce that OpenTofu doesn't have. So if that lag is indefinite because it's just not important to the community, I don't think that's necessarily violating any, like at least spirit of drop-in replacement guarantee. Like HashiCorp is actively working against that compatibility by introducing new features that break that drop-in replacement. When we made the claim, it was true, and HashiCorp has since moved off. So I don't think we really need to have the development team avoid prioritizing OpenTofu specific niceties or introduce new capabilities that diverge from what Terraform does, because HashiCorp is introducing something new down the line. It can be introduced and then prioritized as the community desires it, and we have signal that it's an important feature to them, and then eventually introduce it. Yeah, I think Roger, you still had your hand up. Was that a previous hand up, or
it just didn't come down. Yeah, I think at the minute, do we follow the same development process of open the issue, create an RSC, then even with the Terraform features, or is it just like open an issue that we need to copy this, and there's a bit of a shortcut that then means the development team have to pick that up?
No, it's the same process of opening an issue in an RFC.
Okay. So then it's just a prioritization across those things, and there's no extra priority on the fact that Terraform has that.
So I would say for 90% of things, yes, it's a prioritization. I think there is a very good concrete example of this pluggable state storage that HashiCorp is doing, and we've been discussing backends as plugins for months.
Yep. From the start.
If without the TSC actively saying yes, it's okay to like prioritize in this way, the engineering team might be likely and is just hanging around to see what HashiCorp does instead of actively developing our own alternative.
Okay, so is the TSC willing to give the dev team permission to prioritize their own solutions that might diverge from how Terraform decides to implement them down the line? Because I think that's totally acceptable and expected by the community.
I would agree here.
But this is definitely a situation where we're trying to steer the technical steering way, the S and the TSC, which way the project is going. And it would help if we had this statement from the TSC to say, you don't have to go and maintain a one-to-one compatibility with Terraform. And whether or not that goes in our public messaging going forward or what, we can discuss at a later date. But I think it would be very helpful if I could have like some intention of the TSC in the direction that we're going in to talk about it's okay to go and pitch alternatives and go in a different direction.
I think the problem is with like how broad this message is. In terms of like drop-in replacement, like it's super broad, but like if we can narrow it down, for example, like TSC gives full authority to our maintainers to work on their own vision for the new features or implementation of these features without need to look at like how Terraform already implementing it or like planning to implement. I think it's pretty doable and reasonable, especially for the new features. And I don't believe that like you guys will work against like we'll do it in a way that like it's incompatible because like fuck Terraform. I don't think that will be the case. So like especially like if we can make feature better in reasonable, like in some like, not just like we feel it's better, but it's actually better. It's a no-brainer.
So my understanding that is the way we've been ideally working, which is looking at what the community is requesting based on issues, based on what's at the top of the pile, and letting issues come in for Terraform compatibility and prioritizing them and discussing them on their own merits is what the TSC is on board for. And there will be additional discussion on, just because we're getting close to the end, either here or offline with marketing people who are smarter than we are for this, on how to massage the wording so that it is as clear as we're comfortable with and as flexible as we're comfortable with. Does that sound like a reasonable resolution from that conversation?
Yeah, I just want one more thing. Is let's say like this pluggable like state storage backends, whatever it is. Let's say Terraform implemented in one way, we implemented in another way, widely fucking popular feature, and it's actually kind of like people started to complain like, this is feature I'm using and it's like hard to migrate, etc. We always can add like some migration script or some migration feature if this will become a problem. I don't believe that this will be an issue, or even like add like a new compatibility mode, whatever that means. But
So,
if not, then like why care?
yeah. And part of the conversation around the provider, and it's in the RFC, if you had the misfortune of reading all 8,000 words, sorry, Yusuf, for reading most of it. One of the underpinning things is something that myself and Martin Atkins believe quite strongly is if we are to ship a new OpenTofu provider, which will have new functionality, that it is a superset of the existing provider functionality. The analogy that was put forward was about like HTTP 1 versus 2 versus 3, and how you can carry on just using a certain set of features if you want, and it's perfectly fine, or you can have the new OpenTofu features that sit on top. The provider proof of concept I've written actually does resources, data sources, and everything already, and then I've added new functionality on top. So there is no intention of like breaking compatibility with existing things or anything around there.
Can we spend like, I hope it won't be in a red hole, but 2 more minutes about like the new provider, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The provider.
Does anyone have to go? No, we're good.
I will have to drop. So I've read some of it, so I believe I understand it. I will drop and let you guys continue, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I might need to go too.
Goodbye.
Like if you need to drop, just drop what I just so like it won't for technical stuff I started to add some comments, and yeah, it's fascinating reading, and it's like a lot.
Too
One
much,
thing,
sorry.
It's actually not too much. It's actually like it's not the worst reading I've had in my life, so it's interesting one. Well, like on technical stuff, I'll just add comments because I have a couple reservations where I think we're mixing personas and like whole different conversation. What I wanted to say is it's after reading it, not from like the end user perspective, but general, like I'm looking for IC, looking for OpenTofu, etc. I still not sure what exact like. So yeah, sure, I can write providers, but if I never wrote a provider for Terraform, neither for OpenTofu, like what it gives to me. So like, what exact like product value it gives. So this area is kind of like missing from there, but I think it should be there.
This is feedback I got from a lot of people, and it's very valid.
Okay.
Yes. And with the discussion I've been having and about targeting a specific persona, I think the story that I want to tell is OpenTofu providers are there for new functionality, right? So that's fantastic. Middleware, maybe we start CRL. Maybe we start talking about doing bulk refreshing. Maybe we talk about state storage or a lot of other new features we can add to provider. That will be done in the new OpenTofu provider system. And that's fine. Why would you ever write a provider instead of a Terraform provider for doing resources and data sources and things like this? And I think the story or the difference in the personas is I'm hacking on something internally that is only ever going to be used internally. And OpenTofu providers will be great for resources and data sources for internal hacky tools. You want to commit a Python script alongside your code, right? Maybe you get to a point where you share it internally at your company through a pip package or a node package in your GitHub packages. But it's still very internally and local. And the moment that it gets to a registry is where I think actually writing an OpenTofu provider is not worth it. And I think this is where internal tool usage and authoring providers for internal tool usage is a completely different story to I am a cloud provider or a database provider that wants to ship a tool for end users.
That point I got it. And like I want to focus on internal usage. And when I'm talking about different personas, so like I'm not sure, like I'm pretty sure like you're familiar with the like way how most of the orgs using this. There's like a platform team who set up like a pipelines, GitHub Actions, etc. And the end users, they only have access to Terraform code. They committed to this like a huge like monorepo, or let's say to like specific repo. They just the only thing that they have access to is TF files. They don't have access to the environment where tofu is being executed. They don't have access to the tofu command or whatever. And like I already added one item, like just like, hey, if anybody can now define the provider as like just shell command, I can see a lot of security people getting like straight nuts paranoid because we're already like it's scalar. We're already like, for example, done a lot of like jumps with hoops, how to protect people from executing. Like there's a lot of way in Terraform you can execute shit like configuration version. And like starting from provisioners to some like other stuff. And this is what keeps like lots of people awake at night. And like this is one area, and I already committed. Another area, I generally like the idea of middleware where like require approvals or like cost controls, all this stuff. Like looks phenomenal. The problem I see with it is just people who care about enforcement of the things are not the same as users who writes the code. And if you put this into the same TF file, like I'm the user, I have access to the repo, I have access to configuration, like nothing stops me to change like require approval true to false. And now I still need some third-party tools like Checkov, like some others that will validate configuration version before it will go to the Terraform plan.
Yep.
That's actually, and it's like defines the entire purpose of like approvals or etc.
Yes.
So if like, and I don't want to come up with like like this is how I see the problem. Now, like I will throw a solution out there that like it's a shitty solution, but like just as an example, like if certain parts of configuration can be configured not at like as a general configuration version where you do resources and stuff, but as part of Terraform binary as a config. The same as provider configuration, for example, or like this middleware or something that you can specify as a separate configuration file that platform team controls, not the team who deploys stuff. That would be a game changer.
Yep. Martin Atkins has an RFC for this, and I can't remember the number. Christian's great for numbers, where it's called like registry in a file, I believe we call it. Which is the idea of a separate configuration file that it will allow you to define things such as this. And we've been discussing about defining middleware configuration in a separate file that can be then put in, and life would be easier. The other option I thought about is redistributing middleware configuration from a company point of view. So maybe you've got a DevOps team that wants to say everyone must use this set of middleware in the same way that all of our taco companies do. In Spacelift, we call them hooks and contexts and all these policies that get attached to things automatically. Yeah, you can define a module that has a set of middleware, and maybe that gets automatically run for everything, and people can't alter the configuration within modules. But I definitely think there is this middle ground between I'm running Terraform and some hacky Checkov on my laptop and what all the tacos have, which is like we give DevOps team control over their security and auditing. There's this middle ground of people who want to run cost management, maybe just cost management, or just write a little bit of a Python script to go and make sure they're not making an EC2 instance that's too big and all the usual stuff that we've been doing at tacos for a few years now.
Yeah, but like points about like adoption. If you want to like these features to be widely adopted and ideally for the corporations and companies, etc., not for like individual hackers and students, then like to make it, we need to think how to make it adoptable. Because in the current view, for example, like I just don't see it like the whole provider stuff. I already can see like thousands of use cases. Like it's super cool, but I see zero chance of like large organizations, enterprises who like whose security teams breathe in their necks, like even allow this thing. Like the first thing that I will ask if this will be released, how to turn it off. I can guarantee this, which I don't want to do.
And as a Scalar employee and a Harness employee and a Spacelift employee, I'm sure we can go and give them tools that disallow all middleware. That's not a problem, right?
But again, like thinking about OpenTofu, this is not what I want to do. I want people to adopt all OpenTofu features, not turn off these features, take these features from them.
But I can sit and argue with you all day about how you can still just run a provisioner that does a local shell execution. All providers are just remote code execution anyway. Anyone can run bash scripts or whatever they want after their pipelines. We all put tools in place from these tacos in place to stop this.
I guess Igor's point is, why would we introduce a feature that you can only ever use on your hobby projects that you aren't going to be, and I guess it's our audience and who are we actually trying to reach.
So this is
the further point was then if there's a security concern around it from a security team, then is that something we want to introduce as a first class feature? We're getting caught up in a very specific thing.
But I personally don't think there's any more of a security risk than allowing any other providers or modules that do provisioners or local execution or a HTTP call out to some other system that's read your environment variables, right? It's another attack surface area. I agree. But I don't think there's much of a risk. But I should definitely do a write-up about all of this. It's very valid.
Just to be fair, there are already like whole bunch of existing tools that PNScaler have like it's basically the same. Like there's already Chekhov tools that like flag the local provisioners, flag modules, flag providers, this stuff. And again, like there will be a time where people need to like learn about these new things, add the checks, etc. So it's not like automatically will work for these new features. And actually, like while we talked about it, like I probably will submit an issue if there would be a way in Tofu to specify, like if you launch Tofu plan, Tofu apply, like disable local execution. That will just fucking disable all local provisioners, like all the ways you can launch things. I already from the get-go can find at least 5 companies who scale users who will have a very easy time convincing switch from Terraform to OpenTofu.
Raise an issue. I think it's valid.
Yeah, we'll do.
As
I'm not sure how
DevOps engineer who's hopefully worth his salt, I can think of like 10 ways to work around it, but we should definitely look at this.
Yeah, I mean, like everything that's written by people can be broken by people, like and hacked by people.
It's
So
the
like,
right direction. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because this security angle is actually another good angle of I would say like security. Like if we can be way better at security, I think it's like outweighs even drop-in replacement shit for migration of the large orgs and even like not large orgs.
Yeah, definitely. I think
I'll continue to comment on RFCs.
Yeah, I think let's carry on commenting on the RFCs. Maybe we can discuss this in the next meeting. We can discuss it offline as well. I'm happy to answer questions, get in calls, whatever people want. But I would love to discuss this new provider idea a lot more. I'm going to be setting up a group of people. What can we do if we had a new provider and start coming up with some new ideas? So I'm also writing a small bot that indexes all of our GitHub issues so I can query it with an LLM. Because we have over 3,000 issues and PRs now, and it's difficult to keep track of everything. So,
quick one, another thing, like, let me know if I should create like RFC or like issue, etc. But just an idea, like, do you think it's reasonable? And again, it just come up here right now to create some kind of a wrapper around existing providers, where if you want to extend AWS provider with this new functionality, you don't need to rewrite a whole bunch of shit. You just kind of like launch this wrapper, and it's just like
one of the things I started a proof of concept. So Martin Atkins has started writing a library, a Golang library that allows you to invoke providers. You give it a binary name, it gives you an API that you can call providers. And one of the first things I want to do with that is write a proxy provider that extends new capabilities with the new provider SDK, but still proxies out to the old provider SDKs. So there's some things I had in mind for this. So there's the AWS provider that can be shipped along with some middleware that allows you to extend it really nicely. An ideal world is that the Infocross provider also ships with some Infocross middleware that allows you to configure some rules. And so there's definitely some fun ways we can use this stuff.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I think this is like, we have zero chance, like especially after reading how much Mitchell and HashiCorp spent originally on developing the AWS provider.
Yeah,
I know, but it's public information. It's a public information. So I'm not sure that we want to like create our own versions of these providers, but extending them in a cool way, this will be great.
OpenTofu without the providers and modules is useless in my mind, so we should definitely try and make sure it's extended. Yeah. Sure. Do you guys mind if I borrow you for 30 seconds at the end? I'm just going to finish the recording. I think we're done.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yeah, cool. I'm going to stop the recording.